in the last 20 years, there have been two Yankee managers, Joe and Joe. And they've done a whole lot of winning. As you know, there hasn't been a Yankee losing season since 1992, and they've done a whole lot of winning. Joe's won a World Series. Joe Torre won a couple. How many, in the 20 years before that, how many managerial changes do you think there were? Somebody give me a guess. 6. 19. 19 in the 20 years before the last 20 years. Now, remember, Billy Martin was 5 times. So he came back, and actually 3 guys were more than once. So Gene Michael jumped in a couple of times. Bob Lemon came back once. Billy came back 5 times, which we know, on and on and on again. So, but 19 in 20 years, and now Joe Torre since 96, and Joe Girardi since 98. Joe, has it seemed like you've been here almost 1,300 games already?
No, it's amazing how fast it goes. You know, and I think that I realize it the most when I see pictures of my children when I first started and how big they are now. I used to carry my youngest in a bucket, you know, around in the David sunflower seed buckets. But I mean, now she's 9 and she's, you know, almost 5 feet tall, and she weighs 85, 90 pounds. I can't carry her anymore. So things have really changed.
And, you know, it's funny. I'd watch, and I do shows from Yankee Stadium starting at 1 o'clock, and it was religious when there was a big game. Before anything would happen, Joe would be out on the field pitching to his son, who now is probably how old?
He is 14.
And he hit the heck out of the ball when he was like 7, okay? I used to watch him, and he'd be whacking the ball, and he'd be out there with Joe for an hour before every game. You would be out there with him. So now I'm sure he's on his way halfway to the major league.
He is 14, and he's in 8th grade, and he has got the height of my wife. My wife is 5'9", and he is 5'9", almost 5'10", and he weighs almost as much as I did when I graduated high school. So we go out in the back, and we do a lot of different things, but we play basketball, and that's the biggest change for me now, because when he runs into me, it hurts. You know, when we first played in the back, it never hurt, but now I'm like, Dante, you got to take it easy on me. I mean, you hurt my shoulder, and then he's relentless on defense and embarrasses me, and I'm like, come on, man, just give me a break. Let me just take a shot, and then you can get the ball back. But we have a lot of fun.
You know, it's funny because I wonder what happens to these kids back when we used to, and I've been going to Yankee Stadium and doing these shows from there before big games for a long time now. And getting there early, there's a lot that happens. I mean, one day you know that song, Empire State of Mind, that song? I watched them rehearse that one day when I was on for 4 hours in a row. And Jay-Z's out there. I was like, would you shut up? I mean, I'm tired of listening to it. They were out there 4 hours doing that darn song over and over and over. That's the night they introduced it. That's how long ago it was. And early on, go back to the mid-90 teams, 96 team. I'm out there early one day, and on that team was Cecil Fielder. He's pitching to this chubby little kid, and this kid is left-handed, and he's whacking ball after ball into the seats. And he couldn't have been more than like 12 years old. That kid turned out to be Prince Fielder, who's now whacking him into the seats, as we know, and making basically $150 million doing it. So I watched him when he couldn't have been more than 11, 12 years old, and he was hitting him in the seats then. So it just shows you where these kids wind up. So one day we'll see Dante whacking him into the seats. You know, Don Zimmer, who's gone now, who we all miss, was very instrumental in bringing Joe to the Yankees as a player. And he was in uniform for 60 years. I don't know if you want to emulate that, but how many years now, counting as a player in the minor leagues, this year will be how many years in uniform? Because you played like 18 years.
I played 15 years in the big leagues, 3 in the minor leagues.
That's 18. Now, how many years as a coach and manager?
I was a bench coach for 1.
Right.
And I've managed 9 years.
You've been in a uniform for almost 30 years already.
And to me, that's why putting on a tie is so miserable. Very seldom will you ever see me in a tie because I'm used to that uniform, and I've been extremely blessed. 30 years in uniform, and it's really what I love to do. I love to be in a uniform. I couldn't ever see myself necessarily working in a front office because this is what I love to do. I do really like broadcasting as well. I mean, that is something that's really enjoyable to me. But to be able to go do what you love and what you've been doing since you were a little boy, I'm really blessed.
All right, the last couple of years have now the Yankees, as we said, haven't had a losing year in a long time, but these last couple have been teams that have been tough to put together, a lot of issues, a lot of injuries, a lot of different stuff. This last year, again, you kind of dragged this team to the postseason. What would you say as we look back? What were you proud of? What's your recollections of this past season?
You know, I was really proud how hard the guys fought in the way they gave me 27 outs every day. There were a lot of days that we would come back and win games, and they never seemed to give up. It was really a close group of guys that really relied on each other and pushed each other. And, you know, it was frustrating at times because physically we just got beat up, whether it was in the rotation or whether it was position players losing guys. But guys stepped in and did a really good job. We had some youngsters that really came up and did a wonderful job. I think about the job that Severino did. This is a young man that's 21 years old and really thrived in the situation. There was no fear. And a lot of times, you know, Mike was asking me earlier, kids come up to spring training for the first time, and you don't really see what they got because they're so nervous. Well, we didn't see that from him. You know, he's throwing the third and fourth hitter of major league lineups in spring training. He's pitching them inside and knocking them off the plate. And I'm saying, this kid's got no fear. We're going to see him at some point this year. I think about the job that Greg Bird did, filling in for Mark Teixeira and the 40 RBIs he had in the 2 months and the home runs and the big home runs he hit. I mean, these were not just...
Did he surprise you?
Yes.
I mean, what did you think of him when you saw him before the season?
Well, I knew that this young man was going to play in the big leagues. He's going to be a very good hitter. And he was another guy that was in spring training that was not fazed by his surroundings. But I didn't know that he was going to hit for that much power so early on. Because if you look at his minor league stats, I mean, this is not a 30 home run guy during the course of a minor league season. But that's what he was on pace, you know, 30 and 120 in the big leagues. So he came up and really helped us a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's a lot of guys that don't hit for power in the minors and hit for power in the majors. I don't know if it's because they know the pitching's going to be around the plate, they're more comfortable or whatever. Conforto's another guy like that for the Mets who now is showing power. Mattingly didn't hit a lot of home runs in the minors and then came to the Yankees and hit a bunch. But Bird's got a lot of power. I mean, he can hit the ball out to left center field. He can get the ball out anywhere.
He's going to be a really good player. And I think part of it is you see pitcher, you know, for the second time and the third time. And it's not, you know, you go to a new league and you see all new pitchers again when you move up in the minor leagues. So there's some consistency. The other thing is they start to fill out and they become men instead. You know, I look at Greg Bird, who's I think he's 22 years old. They're not young, you know, adolescents or whatever you want to call them, teenagers. They're men. And when they start to, you know, physically fill out, they start to hit the ball a long ways.
You know, we've seen in the last couple of years the trend towards younger athletic teams. You see how young these teams that are winning are. You saw Houston this year that you played against. You saw the Mets with their pitching staff. And there's a lot of reasons for it that we don't have to go into. But the bottom line is you've had a lot of older players, and you've had to try to manage these guys through injuries and days off and everything. It's hard now with older players. It really is.
Yeah, and we have gotten younger. I think about some of the players that have come up, you know, some of the trades that we've made. We have gotten younger, and I think we'll continue to get younger, especially as some of these kids are starting to come up, whether it's going to be a Gary Sanchez or some of the, you know, an Aaron Judge or some of the other young outfielders and some of the pitching. I mean, you look at some of the guys that started to fill in the bullpen, you know, after the big 3 or 4, they were kids and they get their feet wet and they get better every time they come up. So I believe we are getting younger, and I think it's important because, you know, because you were talking about, I think testing has a lot to do with it. This is a young man's game. Sports is a young man's game.
And no more amphetamines, which is an issue, big issue.
And the grind of a season and all the late nights that you get in, young guys recover better, and it's important that we continue to get younger.
When we talk about, there's a lot of talk about this team and the Yankees and their moves. First of all, the Mets, there's this idea, how about for you personally, there's this idea that the Mets' success weighs on the Yankees heavily. Does the Mets' success weigh on you at all?
No, it doesn't. You know, actually, I've gotten to be pretty good friends with Terry Collins, and you know, I look at, you know, Kevin Long, who I was with a long time, was on one side, Dave Island's on the other side, so I'm kind of torn of, you know, who am I pulling for? But no, it doesn't. I think it's great for the city when both teams are doing well. I mean, the city's alive. I thought the atmosphere when we went over and played the Mets and when they came to our ballpark, I thought it had kind of been renewed again. Maybe it was kind of stale a little bit. But I think it's really good when both teams are playing well and are in the playoffs.
All right, would you have, if Harvey had pleaded with you, would you have put him back in the ninth inning, or would you have gone to the bullpen? It's a question now being asked of every manager and every coach in every sport. Even Popovich weighed in on this.
That's why I try to stay in my house. You know, I was
the whole building is chanting for him.
Yeah, I was talking about the pressure that was on Terry Collins because he was expected to manage not just one, but about 3 or 4 guys that were on innings limitations. And in the back of your mind, you know, if I pitch him too much, is he going to get hurt? And this is part of our big future. And if he doesn't have those pressures of that, I think he leaves him in. I don't even think he hesitates to take him out. I think he lets him go out there and doesn't even think about it. But just think about what had happened the last 6 weeks with this guy and all the talk. And it was on the back page of the paper, and people were getting upset about it. And this is our one chance. And you think about what happened with Strasburg. I mean, how that changed their season. So I think
they were never the same.
I think he was under an enormous amount of pressure. I think he handled it great, and I think he did the right thing.
Has a player ever? He sent the pitching coach over to tell him you're done. It's 8 innings, you're done. We're going to Familia. Has a player ever talked you out of coming out of the game? Like have you ever gone to take him out and he talked you into staying?
Yeah, I mean that's happened, and I've it was something Joe Torre talked to me about. You know, when he was managing and. He said, go look them in the eyes. Their eyes and their answer will tell you if they're done. If you have a question mark, whether they're done. And this is after you get to know a guy. You know, go talk to him out there before you make a move. And now it's a little bit more difficult because they want you to make the move before you cross the line. But sometimes you got to find out. And I've done it on occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you had the big one because you pitched it for A-Rod, who is one of the biggest home run hitters of all time, and that was a shocking moment at the time. So you did it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make some really tough decisions in this game, and that's the hard part because you develop relationships with players, and you don't ever want to embarrass them, and you know that you're going to need more out of them later, and it's a juggling act, trying to manage that ego and telling them that you really believe in them, I'm going to make a change in this situation. But, I mean, that's the process of the relationship having to grow.
How did you feel going into the one-game playoff, which I know you don't like? You don't like the one-game playoff. I'm sure the Pirates don't either. After 2 years in a row, running into a hot pitcher, you ran into a hot pitcher, plus a lefty, which was giving you guys, with Teixeira gone, you guys didn't have much chance against a good lefty. But Keuchel was tough on you guys all year. Now you get him in the one-game format. Did you think that night you had a good chance, or were you worried considering it was Keuchel and he'd given you so much trouble?
Well, I had felt that we had a good chance just because he was on short rest. And I felt if we could knock him out early that, get his pitch count up, that we would have a good chance to win the game. And we didn't really do that, and we didn't do much against him, unfortunately. We didn't have a lot of hits, and he shut us down, and then he continued to pitch well the next round. And, I actually think he's going to be the Cy Young of the league. But I felt we had a good shot. We didn't get it done. It was extremely frustrating. And when you think about it, you start thinking about next season. I'm already thinking about it. And then you go to spring training. You put all that time in. 162 games, 30 games in spring training, the 2 weeks of work, and it ends like that. And it's just, it's really hard. And for me, it takes me time to get over it. I know it takes my players time to get over it. And that's why I have a hard time watching the playoffs, because of the disappointment inside. And I don't sit down and watch games. I'll check scores and I'll turn it on for 10 minutes. But I get back to being a full-time husband and a father and try to get away from it.
Look at the Pirates. They won 98 games and get beaten one-game playoff. Second year in a row.
See, I have my own ideas. I think there has to be a real incentive to win your division, but I still think it should be the best of 3, and it should start Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And they talk about, well, you don't want to give, you don't want the other teams to have so much time off. Well, you know what? The penalty for being a wild card team is you don't get a break. You don't get a day off because you're only going to play 5 days in a row. If you happen to win 2 out of 2, then you get a day off. But that's your penalty, not a one-game playoff, because there's too many things that can go wrong. It can be it can be an error by a player that never makes an error. It could be you lose a pop-up or something like that. So to me, I think it has to be the best of the three, and the penalty is, okay, you play prime time, 8 o'clock in Pittsburgh. Well, you know what? You're going to St. Louis to play the next night. That's your penalty. Take it or leave it.
Tanaka just had surgery, not major surgery, but to clean it out and deal with the bone spur. You think that will make him? That's enough to make him maybe get back to where he was, or are we still going to be dealing with him as a guy we're not going to know about?
Well, I thought he pitched pretty well last year.
He did. He wasn't as good, but he was good.
He wasn't as good, but it's the second time around, and I think people, as players make adjustments to pitchers have to make adjustments. But I think it's going to help. It's not something that he really complained about. I was kind of, we weren't expecting that. But sometimes when the adrenaline wears off from a season and you let your guard down, you tell how you're really feeling. So I hope it does help him, and it allows him to be, freer and looser.
One of the bright spots this year, and after a very tough start, was your shortstop. He went from he was clueless the first month, both ways, and on the base paths he was a joke, to where he played great. He played like an all-star the last 3 months. I mean, he was one of the best shortstops in the league, if not the best, both ways the last 3 months of the season. So he really flourished.
Well, I can't imagine really what he felt coming in. When I came in, I had to replace Mike Stanley, and I was ridiculed on the radio.
Absolutely,
I
might have done it. Yeah, I might have.
And
done
I
it,
had a really tough first month.
Bringing in this guy who can't hit for a guy who hit a lot of home runs. Jeez.
For the first month, and it took Don Zimmer and my wife talking to me, just saying, be yourself, and you'll win the people over. And I think what you end up trying to do, I don't care how free and easy you are as a person, you're trying to replace the guy instead of being yourself. The words that Joe Torre told me when I became manager, because I called for his blessing, he said, be yourself. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be anyone. And that's really hard, because you think about all the talk was about Derek Jeter. All the talk was about replacing Derek. And it's really hard to come in and relax. Also, it's the first time that he hasn't had to look over his shoulder. Well, if I don't have a good game, he's going to play this shortstop today, or he's going to play that shortstop. And that's something they had to deal with. So I think he really grew as a player. I would argue that he was our best position player at the end of the year, offensively and defensively. He's a great kid who works really hard, who has a lot of energy, who can play every day, showed that he could hit against left-handed hitters, and really put some good at-bats. So that trade has worked out very well for us. I know there were questions at the beginning, and I think Shane Green's going to be a good pitcher. But to get something good, you have to give up something good usually. And I look at the trade for Justin Wilson. Yeah, we gave up a good catcher, Cervelli, who had a very good year in Pittsburgh. But Justin Wilson was a key to our bullpen. I mean, he really shortened the game and had a great year.
He had a very good year, as did all your bullpen all the way through. Warren, who was able to do everything for you, and obviously the big two in the back. The catching situation is interesting because the Yankee fans have been hearing about Sanchez since he was 8, okay? I mean, we've been hearing about how good this guy's going to be. Now he is tearing up the Arizona League. I mean, just killing it. Everyone wants him. Murphy looks like he's going to be a good hitter. I think Cervelli's a good everyday catcher. I think Murphy could be better than Cervelli. You have McCann, so you have a lot of catchers to deal from strength there. So you got that situation. How about the catchers, and how about Sanchez? Is Sanchez ready in your mind, or is he on this team? He doesn't have room, but I mean, Is he ready to play every day now?
I think he's pretty close, and I don't think you're really going to know until he gets here. I think he's done a lot in the minor leagues. I think he's showing you how talented he is. You watch him take BP, it's a different sound. You'll hear a lot of old-time scouts say it's a different sound when he hits the ball. And he hits balls that just keep going. And you're like, okay, there's a pop-up to center field. Oh, no. It's on the net back there. And that's the physical tools he has. His arm strength is as good as anyone in the league. He's strong. I believe he's going to be durable. I think the ceiling for this kid is really, really high. And it's just going to come down to, when he gets to the big leagues, can he handle the demands? Can he handle the mental part of it? Can he make physical adjustments when he needs to make them, when clubs adjust to him? But the talent is really there.
And Ref Snyder is a kid they hear about who another guy looks like he has a very good bat.
Yeah, I think his at-bats are very good. If you look at his at-bats the last week of the season, they were as good as anyone's. His at-bats against Keuchel were as good as anyone's. The thing about Ref was he was an outfielder, and he's a conversion. And so far, the limited time that he's played with us, he's really played pretty good second base. He needs to continue to develop there and just understand the position. And the position in the infield has become so much more complicated than it ever was before because shortstop's playing the opposite side of the diamond. Second baseman's now playing the opposite side of the diamonds. The rotation when there's balls hitting the gaps or there's balls hitting the hole and what you have to do, there's a lot to learn. And so for him, he's continuing to progress, and he's got a chance to be really a pretty good player.
Let me touch on two delicate subjects. One, if I had sat with you last February and said, A-Rod's going to have the year he had and then get rave reviews doing the games on TV in the World Series, what were the odds that was going to happen? About 10,000 to 1? I mean, not an incident all year, not a problem.
Right.
Everyone loved him. He had not an issue. And then he got rave reviews on TV doing the games. I mean, amazing the year he had and how everything kind of fit together.
And I would say the TV was harder than the baseball field for this reason. He had never done it before. And it's really difficult the first time I found out, and as I got a migraine the first game I ever broadcast, that when you go do something that you really have never done before, you don't understand how fast that moves. You don't understand how you better be ready to answer the question quickly, and you can't ramble on to get to your point because they have to get to Pete Rose, and they have to get to Raul Ibanez, and they have to keep the show moving. I thought he did a really good job, and I think it's something that he'd probably enjoy when he got done playing because he loves the game so much. The knowledge is there to do it. It's just being able to speak and get that knowledge out and be able to have people understand what you're saying. You know, you can talk to a hitting coach at one level, but maybe you can't talk to the everyday fans at that level because they may not know exactly what you mean. I think he's got a chance to be really good at it because he loves it, and he works so hard at everything that he loves to do.
Yeah, so he had that year. And then you had CC Sabathia, which was an up-and-down year, and then all the craziness at the end of the season, which I'm sure caught you by surprise.
Yeah, it did. I thought he pitched much better once he got the brace on because I think the pain that he would experience a lot of times when he landed on his landing leg started to get to him because he wasn't sure, if I land on this one, am I going to have it? Am I not going to have it? There are days that it hurts worse than others. And I think the brace really helped him with that. The incident on that Sunday morning, I was not prepared for when he came in my office. But I give him a lot of credit for standing up and doing the right thing. And because he understood that his family was more important, that his life was more important. He loved the team. He went back and forth. Do I stay and see how we do on Tuesday? I need help now. I'm going to go now, and I'm tired of hiding it, is what he said, in a sense. I want people to know. And I think that's actually beneficial because now people around him know, I can't put a drink in front of him. I can't do this. And it really, interesting enough, it really hit home when I was in the gym yesterday because I saw CeCe Tuesday morning, and I went to the gym Tuesday afternoon to work out, and a gentleman came up to me, and he said, I thank you for the way you handled the CeCe thing. I was an alcoholic, and I went and got help 13 years, and I've been sober ever since, and I thank you. And I was like, the thing that he did is he's making an impact. And I think people aren't going to be afraid to speak up because CeCe didn't wait until, I can hide this. He stood up in front of the whole world, millions of people. He knew he'd be disappointing fans. He knew that it would, he'd probably disappoint his teammates, but they would respect him for it. He was not afraid. And I think the key in all this is when you need help, go get help. Don't wait, And I think he showed that's what you need to do.
Yeah, he's probably as big a leader as you had on your team. I mean, the team loves him, right?
He's as loved as any much in that club. This is a big teddy bear. I mean, this is a gentleman that has a fierce, competitive side when he gets on the mound, but this is a big teddy bear that loves his wife, who loves his kids, has his kids all the time with him. And, like I said, he's extremely respected in that clubhouse. They love him. and we'll stand behind him.
You expect him, so you expect
Yes.
him back. He's in your plans for this year.
I saw him yesterday working out in our clubhouse.
And he did pitch better once he
Yeah.
had the brace on. He pitched a lot better, as a matter
He
of
did,
fact.
and we need him because I'm gonna say to you, this is the one guy that's been through all this. This is the one guy I don't have to say I have to worry about 200 innings or I have so we need him to pitch well.
What has to? Anything could happen with your team. You heard no one's untouchable, although I think there's some players close, and you have a lot of guys under big contracts too, which makes it hard to move them. But what has to be better for you this year in your mind to say find another 6 or 7 games in the standings to ensure that you're back in top of the division?
I think we have to be more consistent offensively, and that's funny. I think we were second in the American League in runs. I think we have to be more consistent. We have to be a little bit more balanced.
You hit a lot of home runs.
Right.
You win when you hit home runs.
Yes, we won when we hit home runs and we gave a lead or were tied after 6 innings. That was our formula. I think we have to expand how we can win games. And it's putting hits together. It's beating left-handers, the good left-handers. We beat all the good right-handers. We struggled against the good left-handers. Those are the things that I think we need to improve on. And we will continue to get younger as our guys, but I think it's really important. The influx of young players that we had this year continues, because that's how. I think about the teams that I was on. We had a lot of young players that didn't make a ton of money, and when they needed to go out and sign a big free agent or needed to make a big trade, they were able to do that. That didn't blow the payroll just out of control.
Yeah, well, what happens is a lot of those contracts now, you're getting these guys at an older age when they first come to the team, so there's always back years where they're not producing to a high level because these guys are not getting the free agency like they used to.
No, they're not. And, teams are locking up players until they're 31 or 32, knowing that if you sign a player to that deal, you may not get the same production at 32 that you're going to get at 36 and 37. So it's something that our club is trying to measure. I think all clubs are trying to measure. And with the influx of TV money in the game, all teams are able to keep their players for the most part. And that's changed the dynamics, and I think that's why there's so much parity.
The bullpen was very good, and Betances, Miller, it was interesting to have 2 guys that good who didn't seem to mind which one was going to close, which one wasn't going to close. It's unusual because that's a very tricky thing. You heard in Washington how unhappy they were. I got to close. I'm a closer. A lot of that caused a lot of friction in other teams. You didn't have any of that with your team.
No, we didn't. These guys were all willing to do whatever we asked them to, and I give them a lot of credit. And that's Justin Wilson too. Because a lot of clubs, he could have been the 8th inning guy or probably a closer as well because he pitched so well.
The pecking order, folks, gets you more money as you get closer to the end of the game.
But I think they understood that this was about winning games, and I give them a lot of credit for the way they handled it and how durable they were.
All right, we'll get some questions now. Mark, we can't see anybody back here, so you're going to have to just give them and we'll hear you. There we go. That's a little better. There we go. You can turn up the lights back there, and that's a little better. Now we can see. Go ahead.
Anybody?
Who's going to be first? Go ahead.
Joe. Oh, that's loud. Sorry. What would you say about Gardner's second half? Was it just he's physically beat or it just wasn't seeing the ball? I mean, what was going on with him?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. People talk about was he hurt, and then you look at the game he had against Toronto in the doubleheader late. It's sometimes guys' halves are better than others, and he struggled the last 2 months, August and September. Jacoby struggled the last 2 months, August and September, and I think that's one of the reasons it was hard for us to score without hitting home runs because those two struggled in word on base. But, it's something that I'm going to think about more. Maybe it's more off days. And here's the tricky part. A guy's in a streak where he's 7 for 15 with 4 doubles, 2 homers, and whatever, and you're thinking, okay, I should probably give him a day off. But he's so hot. How do I give him? So those are things that we're going to have to talk about next year with some of these guys.
The only guys who finished strong were the shortstop and Beltran. Everybody else declined in August and September.
So, it might come. And part of the problem was I think we played 33 out of the last 34 days. We had some doubleheaders. Our schedule was not favorable. So we're going to have to look at some things next year.
Don't be bashful. Come on.
Hey, Joe. How do you feel about the use of instant replay? You think it extends the game even more, or you'd like to see less of it?
I actually like it because I think what you feel as a team is the call is right, and it doesn't change the complexion of the game as much. You think about how many wild card teams come down to one game either way, and if you were to be on the wrong side of a couple calls during the course of a season, you'd really have a hard time swallowing that. So I think I like it. Yeah, does it add a little bit of time? Yeah.
All right, take us through the process. Take us through the process. Okay, there's a call. Now you're over there waiting to get the word. Now, who are you getting the word from? Who's your guy?
Brett Weber. He sits, in front of like these 12 monitors, and they're looking, and he has to decide fairly quickly. It's usually within 30 to 45 seconds.
Now you're trying to stall, waiting.
Well, you just go like this now instead of walking out.
Right.
I guess they don't want us to
They
exercise.
look in and they say, now they know you're waiting for the word, right?
Right. So they don't want us to exercise.
Is the ump say to you, let's move here? Ever?
No, they never.
They give you the time.
Yeah, they give us the time, and then you'll say replay it or not replay it, and then they look at it, and sometimes it takes more time than others, but I actually like it because they get
How
the
often
call.
has your guy given you good information? Has he given you wrong information?
95% of the time. And he'll even say, I don't know if we're going to win this one, but it's so late in the game.
Worth a shot.
Take a shot.
Okay.
He's really good.
Joe, so you're an old school kind of baseball guy. We got the Buster Posey rule. You can't run into a catcher. Talk to me about the Chase Utley slide to all these diehard Mets fans in here. I'm a Phillies fan. I respect the way Chase Utley plays. Talk to me about that slide.
Here's the thing. I think it really comes down to you have to go towards the base. All right? Because the interesting thing is the one thing that's not reviewable is the neighborhood play. Well, why do they have that? They don't want guys to get hurt. That's why they don't make you touch second base on the double play a lot of times. So if the guy is sliding, this far wide of the bag, his only intention is to break up the double play. I think it's something that really has to be looked at, and here's why. You now have shortstops playing on the other side of the diamond that aren't used to that view. You have second basemen that aren't used to the view when they're playing a short. They're less protected than a catcher because a lot of times their legs are exposed. And what's the one thing that you want? Okay, let's go back to your heyday, 2009, 10, 11. Utley was hitting 30 home runs at 120 RBIs. You had Ryan Howard. When you go to the ballpark, do you want to see him on the field? Yeah. So if you're going to protect players, why not protect that guy as well? Because I think they're more vulnerable than a catcher. I actually had a call at third base where the guy slid where he was 6 feet from the bag and took out our third baseman, Chase Headley. Now, if you understand, Chase Headley's tagging the base, right? Comes here to throw. This guy's going to slide and hit him right here. I mean, the only thing that can happen is he can tear up his knee. And I pointed to the umpire, and the umpire said, don't point. What do you mean, don't point? It's right there. What are you looking at? So I think it's something that they have to clear up because I think the speed of the players and the guys playing on the different side, you're going to see really good players that are out for a long period of time that might change their career. And this is their career as well. I am an old school guy. If you want to go slide at the bag and pop up and flip him that way, I'm all for it. Here's the other thing I don't like. Stolen bases or even double plays. Why should you be allowed to slide through the bag, across the bag, because the only thing you're going to do is take out the guy's knees? If it's your son, I've already started to teach my son. I said, son, I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself. And what you're going to do is you're going to learn to throw low. And if they want to do that, you're going to throw it and hit them right here, right in their helmet or their chest. They won't do it anymore. That's not what you want the game to get to because now it's becoming dangerous. Or what happens on a takeout slide, a bad takeout slide? You start throwing at hitters, and that becomes dangerous. So I think it's something they need to clear. Hey, I'm all about playing hard, and if you slide to the bag and you take the guy out and you're sliding at the bag, you go right ahead. But some of this gets ridiculous.
I thought Joe brought up good points, especially about the infielders now all being all over the field because of the way they play defense now. So you don't have conventional guys covering bags, and he's right about that. The Utley play, though, where it was different, is this. Number one, it's not a neighborhood play because the throw was errant, so it can't be a neighborhood play. That took the neighborhood play out. The errant throw was why he got hurt so badly, because he actually turned his back on Utley to try and field the ball. The problem was, which Joe just brought up, is he was not out of the baseline. He went through the bag, and as he went through the bag, he made sure he went past the bag and took him out, which is not. That's why you could not have given a double play on the play, which is, if you called for interference, it's not classic interference because he had no throw. There was no double play to be had once there was an errant throw. But where he wasn't protected, because by rule there isn't one, is Joe, he went through the bag. He was still within the baseline, but he went past the bag and walloped him.
Yeah.
Really nastily after he was past the bag. There was no double play in order, but it was also a very dirty play past the bag. So it was like half of this and half of that. It was nasty and it was dirty, but it was not a neighborhood play, nor was it interference. So it was a very different play, and that's why they didn't call a double play, which it would have been a terrible injustice to call a double play there, because there was no way they were getting a double play on that ball. Murphy threw it badly to second base, which is what caused him to get hurt. He turned his back on Utley. Otherwise, I don't think he would have been as badly hurt. But Utley was trying to knock him into the outfield. There's no question. So I think Utley had a bad intention, but it was not. It should not have been a double play. But Utley deserves whatever he gets because he was nasty on the play, no question.
I mean, I in a lot of cases, I see slides. How is it any different than targeting in football?
It's not. He's trying to hit him.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really not. And we don't have pads on. We don't have pads. And the problem is it's always.
But how do you protect the runner from the errant throw? That errant throw made him turn his back, and that.
Okay, but if he doesn't slide through the bag,
then he's not
he's
gonna hit
protected.
Him. That's right. He went past the bag. He definitely went.
You
past
can
the
stand
bag.
up. I think you can slide and pop up.
So you make the rule that you can't go past the bag.
Right.
Okay. And he did go right past the bag.
And you're starting to see guys slide head first when they're stealing, and they're going all the way through the bag. They're hitting the guys in the knees, and it's dangerous. And the other thing is, some of those guys get concussions when they do that because they end up hitting their knee, and then they're out.
Yeah, there was a lot of thoughts that Utley got a concussion on that play.
And we all know what we think about concussions now because we're seeing all these tragic things that are happening in the world of football. And so now we're all hypersensitive. That's the other danger in it.
Next question.
Hey, Joe, question. What's your plan with Greg Bird next season if Teixeira is back healthy?
Well, I think you have to wait to see how everything shakes out in spring training. If everyone's healthy and productive, yeah.
Triple A.
Yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate part. But here's the thing. This is the hard thing as a young player. And I'll never forget when Don Zimmer sent me down the first time. It crushed me. I never thought I was going to make it to the big leagues. And it took me like 3 or 4 days to get over. And then I told myself, once I go back up, I'm never going down. But this is what Don Zimmer told me. He says, you're going to be here a lot longer than I am. So go down and get your head right and go play. And he said, the reason you're going down is because the starting catcher's coming back and there's not going to be any playing time, and we want you to continue to develop. I was 24 years old. I think Greg Bird is maybe 22. This guy's going to have a long career. So just go, if that happens, go get ready, play, and your time is coming. So don't screw that part up because it could happen in a week, it could happen in a month, it could happen after the 6 months is over. But don't go screw that up because you don't want us to go look for someone else because you're not doing your job.
And, Teixeira was one of the when they lost Teixeira, he was one of the most productive power hitters in baseball last year. He had 31 homers and 90 RBIs and 390 at-bats, that's unheard of. I mean, those were crazy numbers he had last year. They missed him terribly, especially from the right side. But Bird did well. I mean, they wound up getting 40 homers and 120 RBIs out of first base.
Yeah, I mean, the kid came up and did a sensational job. And I still think there's ways that he can improve and understand how.
But you don't want to sit him, though. You don't
No,
want him to
you
sit.
don't want him to sit.
And there's no DH for him because of A-Rod, and you have Beltran and A-Rod both.
Because you want the kid to continue to develop and become a better first baseman and become a better hitter. So it's tough to handle in the beginning, but I think you start to understand this is only for the betterment of me over the long run.
Joe, one of my favorite memories as a Yankees fan is always going to be the triple you had in '96 versus Maddox when we all realized that it was actually going to happen. So thanks for that.
That's when I
thank
got
you.
over Stanley. Is when I got over
That's
Stanley.
right.
Is when he hit the triple.
It took Mike a while. Joe, obviously, this offseason, a lot of the discussion after the playoffs was Bautista and the bat flipping and everything else after the home runs. I mean, you're an old school baseball guy. What's your thought about some of the showmanship at the plate after big home runs these days?
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of players either when they make an out, swearing and doing all the throwing the bat down. And I actually had a talk with one of my players. I said, I'm telling you, I wouldn't do that because you might get the next guy hit or they might hit you, that sort of thing. I'm a big fan of just playing the game, but our world has accepted that, and that's part of what our world is today. And I think as a player, you can't take it personally. You have to understand there's a lot of emotion, especially that time of the year. But it's when you're on the other side, it's hard to watch. So
Did
the
the Yankees
alternative,
have Reggie Jackson on their team?
the alternative is just get him out. That's the alternative. And if you get him out, he's not going to do that.
But it annoys you.
Oh, of course it does.
Cespedes walked all the way to first base.
Well, it
on
probably
one of them
annoys
this
you
year.
because it's against you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
You don't got giving up home runs.
yeah, whether he flips the bat or not, you're still chapped. So that's what annoys you is the home run.
Two more. Go ahead.
Hey, Joe, can you just describe the biggest difference with Alex's personality in the locker room this year? It seemed like the team really rallied around him as soon as he got back. Getting off to the hot start, I'm sure, helped. But just describe him this year and then to previous years.
Not a lot.
None. I would say none, right?
He's the same guy. I just think, though, that maybe some of the things that he did or said clouded what type of teammate he was in our clubhouse. He has always been. One of the most enjoyable parts of my day, and this goes back to when Milky was here and Robbie Cano was here, was I'd be sitting in my office. We'd come off the field after BP, and the guys would all go to the lunchroom and eat. Now, the lunchroom is 40 yards, 30 yards from my office. And there'd be a group around Alex, and you could hear them laughing out loud all the way to my office. Now, I'm always thinking, okay, is it he saying something funny, or is he doing something stupid that they're laughing at, or what is it? But he always had a group around him, and he always brought players close. He's always been a teacher at heart. He loves the game so much. He's willing to share his knowledge. Maybe the difference is he came back and there was nothing on his shoulders that he was hiding anything because he had been exposed. But he's always been great in the clubhouse. And I think people were worried about when he came in the clubhouse, how would he be received? Well, Alex came in and just was himself. And that was attractive to our players. And, he handled things the right way. And they asked me, would it be a distraction in spring training? I said, it'll be a distraction for 2 or 3 days. And then someone will do something stupid in our world, and all the media will go cover that. It will happen in sports, I'm telling you. Just give it time. And that's what happens. And we were able to get down to baseball. So, he's a little bit more of a fatherly figure because he's old, but he's always taking care of the young players. He's always taking them out to get them clothes, to buy them dinners, to talk about baseball. He went out and stood with Didi about playing shortstop and being in this situation. He's always been great in the clubhouse.
Hey, Joe, what impact did Yogi have on your life? He touched so many people's lives. And I feel like everyone I know has a Yogi story. And as an insider, how did he touch your life?
I think Yogi was one of the best examples of the way God created man to be, is how, without to preach here, is really how Yogi was a superstar. But Yogi was one of the most humble people that I ever met. When you walked into a room with Yogi, whether you were an athlete or you were a businessman or woman or you were just a mother or you were just a child, you felt comfortable. You were not intimidated by Yogi. He just had a way of making you feel like he was your grandfather or he was your best friend. Yogi, every Saturday night in spring training, would say, I'm going to have to cut out of this game a little early. I have to go to church. He adored his wife. He took care of his children. He was a great teacher at heart. He was willing to give back to the community. So I always felt like Yogi was a great example. One of my fondest pictures that I have with Yogi was my daughter was born in September of '99, and I went to his museum. We had a dinner there, and we had a panel there and to raise money for his museum. And here's Yogi holding my daughter. And I'm thinking, God, I hope she realizes who he is someday, you know? And the fact that my son wanted to go to his funeral, you know, who was 13 years old at the time, spoke volumes about Yogi. And I put something in my son's room. I said, son, I want you to keep this. This is something that Yogi gave to me. But this is the example that I want you to follow. You can be as talented, and you may become a great player one day, but I always want you to be humble. And that's the word I think of when I think about Yogi, is he was humble. And there's one other guy I think about that way, and that's Mariano Rivera. I think Mariano has a lot of the same characteristics. But one of my favorite Yogi stories was, you know, Yogi always came to spring training. I'm going to give you two quick ones. And we would drive over to the games together. And we drove over to Kissimmee, where the Houston Astros play. And he said, man, you know, and he takes like 3 or 4 naps on the way over. He says, you took the long way. I said, Yogi, this is the way we always take. I'm telling you, you took the long way. Talk to their clubby and get the directions to go home. I come in after the game. He says, have you talked to the clubby yet? I said, no. I said, I'm going to go talk to him right now. So I go talk to Steve Perry, the clubby. And I said, will you give me the best directions to get back to Tampa? So he gives them to me, and we're driving home, and it's the exact same way we came. I said, Yogi, this is the exact same way. And he looks at me and says, I told you my way was quicker. And I'll never forget that story. And the other story is we're playing over in Philly, and Yogi, you know, Carmen let him go to spring training, and these are in the later years where it's a little tougher for him to get around. And he takes a drink of hot soup, and it's so hot he falls back and hits his head. So now we're scared, and the ambulance comes and takes him out, and Carmen's not there, and Gator's in charge of him until Carmen's able to get there, and he's like, whatever you do, don't tell my wife, because she'll make me come home. He wanted to be there so bad, and I'm thinking, and today with all the social media, someone's tweeting out that I took Yogi to the hospital, I saw Yogi in the hospital, but he wanted to be there so bad because he loved it, and would always offer wisdom and knowledge.
All right, well, listen,
There's a gentleman, one more question right here. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you had your hand up right here. Yes? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey, Joe. Joe, do you think the rulings of Tropicana Field seem fair to you, or what?
I think they should take the roof off.
They should move.
Yeah, I really believe that, you know, for that team to thrive, I think they need to move and probably get a retractable roof. And you know,
terrible place.
I have not done a study of where the best place to locate it is, but I think somewhere just off of I-4, maybe out by where they have the fairgrounds, where people from Orlando would come, people
And Tampa,
from
north of Tampa, south of Orlando. Yes,
I think would be a great place to put a
a
stadium.
lot of people there.
But they've signed a long lease, and it's difficult. And I think the other team that really deserves a new stadium is Oakland. You know, let them move. You know, if they want to go to San Jose, just give
Might
them.
happen now with the Raiders trying to go back to L.A., so which is going to happen too.
Yeah,
so,
just
yes.
they need a new stadium. The clubhouses should not be flooded from the, you know, the toilets backing up.
Bathrooms, yeah. That's a rough state. It is a bad ballpark. They both are really bad
And
places
they're good,
to go.
and they're a good team year in
Yeah.
and year out. So I think they deserve a new stadium.
Well, thanks to big hand for Joe Girardi. Thank you. We wish you luck again this year,
Thank
Joe.
you.
As always, good to see you. Have a nice holiday season. And to all you folks, thanks for coming. I know that you are mostly sponsors of the Yankees and of the fans, so we thank you for your support. And have a good day, good Veterans Day, not Valentine's Day, Veterans Day. So, and thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.